Welcome to episode 146 of Cocktails in the War Room. And I just wanted to show you what's happening here in the War Room as we speak. We have done 146 of these episodes. It started back on March 14th of 2020. If you have been here all along, welcome, seasoned member of the Cocktails in the War Room family. And if you are new, I'm Mistress Carrie, your host. This is my sidekick, Wednesday the Goth Pug, who sometimes is very finicky about joining us here in the War Room. However, this evening, she arrived early, as if I put a mark on the couch exactly where she needed to sit, and she has been waiting for the last 15 minutes for the show to begin because someone has learned that there are cookies in the War Room, aren't there? Wednesday. Is that what you want? Is that how I need to get you on the show from now on? I just need to bribe you? Do you guys see the head tilt that's happening right now? Are you watching that? Do you want to say hi? Look up here. Say hi to everyone. Hi, everyone. No, get down. Sit down. Sit down nicely. Sit. Good girl. Zero. There's a peanut gallery here tonight. Get down. Sit nicely. Thank you. No, back up. Down. Good girl. Back up. Sit nicely. Quiet. No, hey, you're being very fresh tonight. Everyone says hi Wednesday, but they don't like a fresh dog. They like a nice dog. Are you a nice dog? No. Are you a nice dog? Huh? Okay, you're a good girl. Wednesday's best pal, Zero, is also joining us in the War Room this evening. Zero, do you want to come up and say hi to everyone? Come here. Zero, come on, up here. Are you going to come up with Wednesday? Come on. No? Are you camera shy? Okay. Good girl, Wednesday. You're being very good. Good girl, Zero. So this is what's going on, okay? We've done this 146 times, and all of a sudden, Wednesday is now the most willing camera hog participant in the history of Cocktails in the War Room. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. If you're new to Cocktails in the War Room, let us know in the comments, please. Let us know that this is your first time, or if maybe you came back for a second time, and also let us know where you're watching from, because a lot of people are learning about the War Room because they're hearing the Mistress Carrie podcast, or maybe they're tuning into the Mistress Carrie radio show. And so you might be new to the War Room, but every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern, we get together here in a room in my house that I call the War Room. It's because this is where all of my military memorabilia is from my family, my trips overseas, and also it's where the bar is. So cheers to you guys and welcome to the War Room. You can usually tell what I'm drinking based on the glass. Great Muppet Caper glasses have become the PBR hard coffee. I'll explain to you why I am drinking coffee at 8:30 at night in a second. What's going on, Veronica? Hello, newbies, says Melissa. Hey, Carrie. Kiss was awesome on Wednesday. Ralph, glad you had a good time. Hello from Burlington, Vermont, Greg says. Love that. Welcome to our new family members, says Donna. See you at the boathouse. Joe, we're going to talk about the boat tonight. So welcome everybody that's joining us in the War Room for the first time. And a huge thank you to all of the War Room family members who have been with me along the way. The first thing I'm going to do while my dog is sitting so obediently over here, you're being so good. Good girl. Is I need somebody to do some math. So somebody here in the War Room, if you can do me a favor and open up a calendar for me, I need you guys to figure out what episode. Here you go, Zero. So tonight is episode 146. I got kind of a crazy little bit of an idea. It's in very early stages, so I can't say anything about it right now. But what I need to know, if somebody could do the counting over the next couple minutes, I need to know what episode number we are going to be at on the Tuesday between September 15th and 25th next year. Not this year, But next year, sometime between September 15th and 25th next year is going to be a Tuesday. I think it's the 19th of September of 2022. If we don't miss any episodes between now and then, which I'm not planning to, but let's just hope for the best. What episode number are we going to be at that week between September 15th and 25th? Let me know in the comments. That would be great. Wednesday, you're being a very good dog. I brought some toys down for you. Everybody in the war room that might be new, this is the ducking stingray. If you are new to the war room, go to mistresscarrie.com, go to my blog, and the first blog post ever is something called the Dictionary, and it will give you a list of glossary terms, phrases, inside jokes that we use here in the war room from time to time. And because we don't want you to be left behind when we're making references to things. And this is the ducking stingray. And now is the point where everyone's dogs that are watching the show start to go crazy because Wednesday's toys are getting squeaked. Wednesday, are you all done? Are you done being here in the war room? Because I'm going to turn your pug cam off. If you're not going to use the pug cam, I'm going to put it away. Are you done with the pug cam? You can't sit over there. There's no pug cam there. Okay, fine. Then I'm turning off your pug cam. That's what you get. How are you guys? We got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about Charlie Watts. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. Yeah, 2022. Would it be 2022? September 20th of 2022? Is that it, Eric? What episode number is that going to be? Shut the front door. Is that episode 200? Shut up. Is it really, Jeff? It can't be. You guys are all, somebody's miscounting. You guys are getting my hopes up. Don't get my hopes up. Wednesday, stop your scratching. So whatever that Tuesday is between September 15th and September 25th of 2022, I need to know what episode it's going to be. 2002, Tuesday the 20th, episode 202, I should say. Mickey says episode 202 on Tuesday the 20th. Yeah. Easy for you guys to say. Okay. Challenge accepted. Maybe 203. If you miss December 25th, that's a Tuesday. See, now I don't know. Christmas night, 8:30. I might have had a couple hot ciders. We might have to get together in the war room Christmas night. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. But it's going to be, my math says 200, says Mark. Somebody figure it out. I'm drinking because it's been a long day. I can't do the math right now. So for anybody with a backstage pass, a Mistress Carrie backstage pass, you guys know this, but the first thing I wanted to do was tell you guys that I got an unexpected bonus because of Henri. For anybody that's not in the Northeast, the first hurricane to make landfall in the Northeast in 30 years, Henri, showed up over the weekend. And it just so happened that my husband, who has been overseas since last September, was traveling back to the United States and got grounded because of Henri. And so I got an unexpected rainy weekend at home with my husband over the weekend, which I got to tell you guys was so needed and such a wonderful surprise. And it was so awesome. Obviously, I was a little bit worried about the weather. Obviously, I know that there are people along the coast, especially down in Connecticut, down in New York, not even just down in New York, but upstate New York that just got pounded with rain. Where I am, we didn't get too much rain, so it wasn't that bad. So I'm not trying to make light out of anyone's suffering that may have really had some storm damage, lost power. There were 3 different tornadoes that touched down. I think one was in Bolton, one was in Stowe, and one was in Marlborough. They were all EF0 tornadoes. So there was definitely some stuff going on because of the weather, but it was so nice to kind of not be able to really go anywhere or do anything. And he was traveling and was going to get grounded somewhere. So why not get grounded at home? And the reason why I'm white knuckling the hard coffee right now is that I had to get up at 3:00 this morning and drive him to the airport so he could leave this morning. And you guys know by now, you've been on this ride with me since last February, or last March, I should say, that it's always tough to say bye. And so I've been up since 3 a.m. off and on. So Michael, it was kind of a booty call. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Uncle Sam, for the booty call. I don't even have this week's podcast episode completed yet because it's been a day. So tonight, when we get out of the war room, you guys need to know that I'm going to be scrambling back to MCHQ to get episode 64 completed, and also tomorrow's sit rep. So I need to be well caffeinated because it's going to be a long night. Let's see. That's awesome. You were able to spend some time with him, says Donna. Hi, everyone. I definitely need a drink this week. It's been a rough one, too, says Jillian. Cheers to you, Jillian. Christmas is on a Sunday in 2022. No, what's Christmas this year, Jen? Is Christmas 2021 on a Tuesday? That's the one we're talking about, because that's going to affect the episode count for next year, getting into September and trying to figure out what episode is going to fall between September 15th and 25th next year. What episode number it's going to be, whatever that Tuesday night is. Oh, so I need the caffeine. Xmas is a Saturday. It's a Saturday this year. I'm so confused. Because there's a 10-second delay in the comment. So I always have to take that into account. Let me fill my glass over here because this drink's going down a little easy tonight. Xmas is a Saturday this year. Okay, that's good. If that's what you're saying. Christmas is on a Saturday this year. Fantastic. I have a gallon of sangria and I'm off for 3 days, says Ralph. Ralph, that sounds like heaven. 3 days off and a gallon of sangria? Absolutely. What's up, Mike? It says, Mistress Carrie, Rockin' Pod was great. What's going on, Mike? Thank you for joining us in the War Room. We meet here every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern. It was nice to go down to Nashville. I got to tell you, we talked a lot about Rockin' Pod when I got back. Absolutely loved Nashville. Can't wait to go back. The fact that there's so much amazing rock music getting made down there means that there's more and more rock and roll people that are living down there and working down there, which means I have more and more reasons to go back and visit. So Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 will be episode 202. That's a lot of twos, Brianna. Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, episode 202. I'm going to need to be sober for that one. It is a long-term plan. I can't talk about it right now. Don't even know if I could pull it off. Don't even know if I'm going to be able to. $20 to chug this bottle of Texas Pete. Mike, producer Mike. So producer Mike was in Afghanistan with me. And as we get closer to the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and as we get closer to the 10th anniversary of our trip to Afghanistan, there's a lot of stuff that's starting to come up in our timelines, both professionally and personally. And so we've been sharing memories and stuff. And one of the guys got paid $20 to chug a bottle of Texas Pete. I believe it was coming out of his nose, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I got to start digging through some more of those photos and stuff. My cousin Lindsay lives in Nashville, says Jared. Sending love and healing, says Paula. Elsa, my garden is fucked. There's the first swear of the night. The garden has been just brutal between the periods of downpour rain and then the hot spells. The weeds have been out of control. My tomato plants, the big tomatoes died. The cherry tomatoes are starting to come in like gangbusters. The basil is great. The green peppers have been amazing this year. The eggplants are doing fantastic. But a lot of other stuff. My cucumbers are horrible, which you would think with a lot of rain, they wouldn't be terrible, but they are. Unlike everyone else, I have 0 zucchini right now, which is totally bumming me out. And the green beans have not been great. It's been the herbs, on the other hand, have been amazing. I planted for the first time ginger root, and they're growing like crazy. My lemongrass, my oregano, my thyme, my sage, rosemary, all of that stuff is growing like crazy. But the actual vegetables have not been good. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it's been a really weird year for the garden this year. Couldn't get Reaper peppers to grow, says Joshua. I don't know what you're doing with Reaper peppers, you weirdo. I can't even say it without my eyes watering. Joshua says couldn't get the Reaper peppers to grow. Eric says my tomatoes are junk. Donna says my cucumbers are deformed. Yeah, the coffee cup I gave Wendy as a background. Trina, she loves this thing. You put all these different things. We stuff little toys in her coffee cup, and she'll spend like an hour like trying to get all the little toys out of there that we stuff in there. She absolutely loves it. The donuts that came with it may or may not have survived, however. The donuts may have gone to the big coffee cup in the sky, as we say. Same down here in West Texas, says William. William, are you a transplanted New Englander, or are you listening to the Mistress Carrie radio show in West Texas? Let me know in the comments. Donna says my tomatoes did okay. Barbara says my zucchini flowered, but haven't turned into zucchini. Barbara, that's what happened to mine. So weird. Wendy says her green beans suck too. Mom thinks she can handle a Reaper pepper, so I figured I would try and grow some, but failed, says Joshua. My weed is looking mighty fine, says Mark. Well, congratulations to you. Take the herbs and chop them up and put them in olive oil to make flavored oil. So good. Trina, I do that actually. I make this infused basil oil that literally I just want to drink. It's so good. Sunflowers are growing but not blooming. Yeah, it's been a really weird year between the early snow we got last year and then the early heat wave getting up into the 90s in May this year, and then the freezing cold temperatures over Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, it's weird. Did you see the to-go Dunkin' Donut coffee cup and donut? Yes, where they put the donut on the straw. Dunkin' Donuts. Heidi says, I planted pineapples, but they died too. Yeah, it's very strange. I have a Christmas cactus, says Trina. Christina, I do that too. Freezing herbs in an ice tray and throw them in the sauce with a little olive oil. I totally do that. It's delicious. Basil oil, that sounds so good. Brianna, I'm telling you, it is so good. You got to break up the basil, heat up the olive oil on the stove, and then don't boil it or make it super hot, but then you put it in there and the oil turns bright green, and then you got to put it through like cheesecloth or coffee filters to get the chunks of the basil out, and it leaves you with this emerald green oil that you literally want to put on everything. Hey, what are you doing? Come over here. Come here. What? You got a fuzzy on your face. Boop. Boop. I booped the pug nose. See? Look at this. When is she ever? It's like she's a trained dog on television right now, hitting her mark. Are you trying to get like a new toy? Are you trying to get like a new leash? What's going on, Wednesday? Because you're being like the best dog ever right now, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Can you want to show everybody how you wiggle your tail? Do you want to show everybody how you wiggle your tail? Can you wiggle your little cinnamon bun tail? Can you do that for me? Seriously, guys, I don't know what's going on. If you're new to the War Room, this is not normal behavior for the Wednesday. Usually she is way less obedient and still is cute, but definitely not as obedient. Right now, she looks like she's trained, which everybody that's a regular or a family member here in the War Room knows is definitely not the case. Goodbye pillows, exactly. Yeah, guys, the basil oil, oh my God, it's so good. You just want to like dunk bread in it. It's so good. You don't have to put anything in it. But if you're going to put it like in a jar or a bottle, you got to make sure you get all the plant chunks out of it because they'll go bad. And then you can only save it in the refrigerator because of the plant material for like a couple weeks. So you have to use it right away. It's not something you can leave out on the counter once you put fresh plant material in it because you can get sick. So if you're going to make the basil oil, I'm sure you can Google a recipe for like basil infused oil, but the oil turns this bright green and it is the most delicious thing. So if you're growing basil and you don't think you're going to be able to use, because my basil plants are massive this year, and that's what you got to do with it. You got to like make basil oil. The problem is, like I said, it only lasts a few weeks. So it's something you're going to want to like gift people, bring it to the neighbors, like whoever, but it's delicious. Or you can mix it with like pesto and then you can freeze it because olive oil will freeze. And then you don't have to worry about it going bad and you can just put it in the freezer and it's delicious. Carrie, you need to come out with a cookbook, says Heidi. You know, I got to tell you, I've told you guys a bunch of times about like the doomsday prepping stuff. I've learned a lot just from Googling. Like I'm by no means any kind of expert, but what I end up doing is if I get an abundance of something in the garden, I just start Googling like, what do I do with extra basil? And I find this stuff. All energies are really weird since Henri left. Yeah, everything is, sorry, I got a couple pug hairs on the microphone. Yeah, everything has been weird. Hey, you can't sit over there. There's no camera. Come over here. Come over here and sit. Sit down. Sit. 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 Good girl. You're being so good. Why are you being so good? Why are you being so good? Huh? Do you want something from me? Are you showing everybody how you wiggle your little butt tail? Had a guy at work shave his head, and now he looks like Uncle Fester, says Jared. Mike says CMFT album. Yeah, we got to talk about Corey Taylor. That album is great, by the way. I love it. The olive oil should last. Trina, once you put fresh plant material in it, it doesn't. Every recipe I found for infused basil oil had a warning on it about, I don't know what it is that can make you sick from like fresh plants that like go bad, but it does not last. You got to put it in the fridge. So just be really careful. Pug butt. It's pug hole, Mark. You saw the pug hole. Sorry about that. The War Room Cookbook, a whole chapter on blueberry cobbler inspired recipes. Oh, God. That would be hilarious, right? This is your dinosaur? Give me that. Give me that. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Who is this obedient pug? Wendy wants to know. I don't know, Wendy. I have no idea. Corn stains comes from the clam pouch. I believe I updated the dictionary last week after the show, and clam pouch and corn stains are up there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? Who is this dog that wants to be on the show? What is going on Wednesday? You know I even ran out of treats for you and you're still hanging around. Let's see if we can scare her with the pig. Yep. She does not like that pig. Just like that, she left. See what happens? Yeah, I don't know. All right, so we got a bunch of stuff to talk about, so I don't want to hold up anymore. So the first thing I want to let you guys know is tickets are selling really well for the big 150th episode of Cocktails in the War Room. It's happening September 21st, so we got a few weeks. But if you intend on coming, get your tickets now. I talked to the guys from the boat today. Tickets are selling. There's a lot going on at the show. Tickets are only $10 and you're going to get your money's worth for sure. Not only is it going to be episode 150, Mike Shue is going to be there to co-host episode 150, which means bag of dicks, absolutely necessary. Josh Dolan is going, I had the hiccups. I've had the hiccups for 2 days. I'm going to hold my breath. Josh Dolan is going to be doing stand-up before the show. The Shadows of Boston are going to play their first live gig. Shadows of Boston featuring Scruffy Wallace, bagpiper extraordinaire, former member of the Dropkick Murphys. Regimental Whiskey is going to be there debuting the Mistress Manhattan. Regimental Whiskey is part of the Regimental Spirits Company that was started by a bunch of veterans, including one of the guys that I was in Afghanistan with. And so they are going to be on site doing some sampling and debuting the Mistress Manhattan. And also just added, there's going to be an acoustic duo that's going to be playing early in the night called Decomp. So it's going to be a jam-packed night. It's going to be an absolute blast. And you got to get your tickets now. Go to the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. The link, the tickets are available through Eventbrite, and the link, everything you need to know, is at mistresscarrie.com. Just click events and go to September 21st. The link is there to get your tickets. Clam pouch rules, says Tracy. Now that working out on the air with the hiccups. Yeah, it was hard today. I had to hide it's my birthday on September 21st. Elsa, you need to be at the party. Hiccups plus voice recording equals not fun. No, it was not a good day today having the hiccups. It's been rough. I'm from Texas, but moved up here to New Hampshire in 2000 and moved back in 2009. Well, William, thank you for hanging out with us in the war room here while you're in Texas. Did you just hear me say I had the hiccups? What the F, witch? Barbara? Get out of my brain, Barbara. Are they bringing back the drinks from the first time at the boat? My assumption, Eric, would be yes. The purple drinks, I would think so. The guys at the boat might be watching right now. So if they are, we want the signature cocktails back. What was it? The blueberry cobbler. And there was another one too. I'm having my Manhattan tonight. My name is Rainbow Manhattan. Well, there you go. So we're going to have a Mistress Manhattan. So just get your tickets. Bring your friends. It's going to be a great way to be able to hang out. There's going to be, like I said, comedy, live music, drink tasting, acoustic performances. Mike Shue's going to be there. It's going to be an absolute blast. There's food at the boat. Doors open at 6:00. And I know it's a Tuesday night. We're not going to keep you out till 2 a.m. unless you want to be. But it's going to be an absolute blast. And I can't wait to see all of you guys. So get your tickets now. Don't wait till the last minute. They're only $10. But what I don't want to have happen is for the tickets to sell out and then you to really wish that you could have gotten in and you can't. So get your tickets. All right, let's talk about the podcast recap. Episode 63 of the Mistress Carrie podcast came out last week, featuring the one and only Nancy Wilson. Now, I know some people have messaged me. I told you guys last week that there were some technical issues. I believe some of the issues I've been able to work out. So if you listen to the episode right when it came out, there was some doubling of the audio. I think I got that taken care of. I've gone back with some suggestions from some audio nerd friends and tried to fix Nancy's audio as well since the episode came out. If you haven't heard it yet, it's available now. Nancy Wilson, episode 63, sponsored by Digital Federal Credit Union and Jumptown Skydiving. There was also a bonus episode a couple of weeks ago, speaking of Rockin' Pod, when I sat down and talked to Billy Sheehan. So if you haven't caught the bonus episode, you definitely want to listen to that as well. But Nancy Wilson, one of my friend Sean, texted me. He said, I just finished listening to the episode and I just want to give her a big hug. She is like the most like badass, like grandma, like, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but Nancy Wilson is just this amazing matriarch of rock and roll. She has this maternal sweetness about her, but then at the same time, you know that she is just a badass motherfucker. And I just love talking to her. She's so candid and so open about her upbringing and songwriting. And I just loved talking to her, whether or not we had technical issues. I just loved talking to Nancy Wilson. How could you not? And I learned a lot. I loved her story about going to see the Beatles as a kid. And I loved the way that Nancy Wilson talked about her and her sister and their band of all girls, how they didn't want to date the Beatles. Like me growing up, I wanted John Bon Jovi's tour bus to get lost on my cul-de-sac. Like that was going to happen. And I wanted him to fall in love with me. Nancy Wilson grew up from an early age going, no, I don't want to date the Beatles. I don't want to be with the Beatles. I want to be the Beatles. She was this vanguard in music from such an early age. And hearing her talk about her and Anne's upbringing their exposure to all different kinds of music at such a young age. I loved hearing her talk about her love of the acoustic guitar versus her love of the electric guitar, and how she looks at the acoustic and how she kind of beats on it. She said that it wasn't something that she played gingerly. And obviously, if you've ever seen Heart live or you listen to any of her music, she beats the death out of her acoustic guitar. But that's part of what gives the band their sound too. Melissa said, my jaw dropped when Nancy said she had all of her first recordings from when she was a kid. I know. And those are the kinds of things that it's like, I wonder if she's ever going to release them. All the little recordings that the band made, or that her and Ann made when they were kids, and the fact that they saved them all, I think is so cool. And I hope that maybe they do something with them, because I think it would be hilarious to hear the childhood innocence, but yet the brilliance at the same time, because it's like, you know how the story ends. You know she ends up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but to be able to hear her at that young age working through her own musical identity is pretty fascinating. Saw them 2 years ago with my daughter, and they were amazing. Linda, does not surprise me at all. I also loved how she talks about how on her solo album, You and Me, that she does all the singing, and that she took vocal advice from Ann, who told her to like just kind of feel it and kind of be in that moment, and to not worry so much about trying to sing it perfectly, which is such a rock and roll kind of attitude to have. And obviously only somebody with a voice like Ann Wilson can give that advice. Like, don't worry about it being perfect. Just put everything you have into it. Easy for you to say Ann Wilson when you have like the most amazing rock and roll voice ever. I also loved her candidness talking about the rehearsals the night before the Kennedy Center honors, and how her fingers were cold and she screwed up the solo to Stairway to Heaven, and how her band members were there saying, well, we can shadow you. If you guys didn't catch that in the episode, shadow you meant they were offering to play her part under her, so that she wouldn't get caught totally screwing up the solo, that if she did miss a note or did like screw something up, that there would be someone behind her playing the part and you wouldn't notice the screw up as much. On one hand, amazingly gracious of her band members to do that. On the other hand, I appreciate her willingness to be like, fuck you guys. I'm not going to screw up Stairway to Heaven in front of the president and the members of Led Zeppelin tomorrow. She made her mistakes in sound check, which is where you're supposed to make the mistakes. And I loved, if you go back and watch the footage, I loved how she talked about the moment right before they went out, when she was there with Ann and she was just saying, focus, focus, focus. And it's the only time in the whole interview she swore, and she laughed about it. She was like, focus, 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 fucking focus. And the idea that that's what was happening backstage right before that amazing performance that still makes the hair on my neck stand up on end. It was so real and human that even in that moment, she was willing herself to concentrate and to do well. It was such a fascinating, really personal sit down with her. And I just love her. I just think she's awesome. I would like to talk to her every day for the rest of my life. Let's see. My sweet friend asked me to go with him to Hampton last week to see Ann Wilson. So sad that I had to turn it down, says Trina. Yeah, I mean, look, Ann Wilson, I also loved how she kind of touched on this too. There were no breaks given to Heart. In the 70s, they were breaking new ground that had to be broken by the blues greats in the 40s and the Motown greats in the 50s. And then women like Janis Joplin in the 60s, right? And then you get women in the 70s like Debbie Harry and Joan Jett and Heart. But then when Heart had their resurgence in the 80s, in the middle of the MTV girls, like objectification of women. And then you have Ann Wilson, who has got one of the most amazing voices in rock and roll, and Nancy Wilson, one of the most accomplished and respected guitar players. And a lot of the comments and commentary were about Ann Wilson's weight. And it's so foolish. But she touched on that too. And that, that being women and being in this time, it can be easy to kind of overlook what women before have had to go through. Look at women like Adele who have been criticized for her voice. And it's like, do you think Adele gives a fuck if you think that she's fat or thin with a voice like that? Do you think Aretha Franklin cared what you thought about what she looked like with a voice like that? But unfortunately, a guy like Luciano Pavarotti, he could be as big as he wants and all anybody focused on was his talents. But then when it comes to the women in that time, they overlook the talent to judge the image. And so I really loved Nancy's candidness kind of addressing that in a subtle way as well. And I just love her. So if you have not checked out episode 63 of the Mistress Carrie podcast, you definitely want to check it out. Episode 64 comes with a funny story. Episode 64 features Carl Bell, who's the guy in the sunglasses there, a founding member, songwriter from Fuel. He is going to be my guest on episode 64. Now, Carl and I were scheduled to talk at a specific time, and it was before my radio show. And then something happened and he was delayed. And I believe he got caught up with like home stuff, believe it or not, and like forgot to call or forgot to connect on Zoom. And I started getting nervous because my show was going to start on the air and I wanted to get the interview done and getting it rescheduled. Fuel's got a new record coming out. Their schedule is crazy. And I wanted to make sure that I talked to him. And so the record company had to call him and be like, dude, did you forget to call Carrie? And he was like, oh shit. So we connected and you hear at the very beginning of the episode, we're like, are we here? Are we good? Are we doing this? Are we okay? And so this episode wasn't as long as it could have been. And that was because we were recording the episode literally up until the minute before my radio show started. But he was amazing. I loved talking to Carl about songwriting. He was incredibly candid about the lineup changes in the band, why he left the band and came back, how he had resigned himself to the fact that Fuel was done and that he wasn't going to have anything to do with it anymore, and then why he ended up coming back, why the band has a new record coming out. I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. So episode 64 features Carl Bell from Fuel, and it goes live tonight at midnight. So you'll hear it in the episode. It's pretty funny. He was like, I'm so sorry. These things happen. And it's one of those things where it's like, I could not tell you, but that's part of the funny part of the story is, yeah, that it was like, hey, Carl, you're missing an interview time right now. Because these times get scheduled between managers, agents, record company people, and we agree on a time. They send me pictures. So like they send me a picture that I can then use in things like Cocktails in the War Room to promote the interview. There's a lot of back and forth about coordinating it. And a lot of the time we try to coordinate the release of the podcast episode around the release of the band's records or tour announcements, which is why you'll notice that episodes come out right around the time bands announce a big tour or the record comes out, because that's when the label and the managers can actually sit them down and go, look, you need to sit still for a few minutes because you have interviews to do to promote everything you have going on. And so when you make this schedule and you make a plan and then they end up like literally fixing something around the house and then they forget to call you, it's kind of hilarious. So this episode goes live at midnight. It's once again sponsored by Jumptown Skydiving at jumptown.com and also Digital Federal Credit Union at dcu.org. I want to remind you that if you subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast, you get all the situation reports as well. You get them 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, all of your rock news, music headlines, industry info, everything you need to know in under 5 minutes so you can get on with your day. But after you listen to the sit rep, you feel like you're kind of caught up with what's going on, what albums are coming out, what tour announcements happened. It's a lot of the stuff that we end up talking about here in the War Room, but news changes every day. And it's always up to the minute. I record it as late at night as I possibly can. So first thing in the morning, you know, it's about as up to date as it can be without it actually being live. So if you subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast, you're also going to get all of the sit rep episodes as well. Here are just some of the places you can subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast. Whatever podcast outlet you use, whatever app you use, you can find the Mistress Carrie podcast on it. As long as you find that logo, then you know it's the right podcast. And if you're like, I have no fucking idea what a podcast is, how to listen to a goddamn podcast, Carrie, I don't even know what you're talking about. You can also listen to them on my Facebook page, or you can just go to mistresscarrie.com and find the episode you want to listen to and then literally click play. It can't be more easy for you. So check out all the episodes pretty much everywhere you could listen to the podcast. It is up there. We are holding steady at 114 countries that are listening to the Mistress Carrie podcast. And Canada is still holding strong at country number 2 behind the United States in largest listening audience. So I want to make sure that I'm saying hello to our neighbors to the north. Lots of stuff going on. Let me run down some of these quick bullet points before we get to talking about Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones. Motorhead's graphic novel is coming out on September 7th. There is also, they just announced a greatest hits package as well. It's going to be 2 albums worth, and that's on the way as well. So lots of great stuff coming from Motorhead. The Led Zeppelin authorized documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin, is expected sometime this fall. I don't know exactly when. This Sunday night, AC/DC's Making the Band is going to be on Reels. It's on Sunday night at 9 p.m., so you can check that out. Nikki Sixx, The First 21, his new book is coming out on October 19th. And we're also waiting on the first single from the upcoming 6 a.m. album as well. Iron Maiden came out this week and said they have had Senjutsu under lock and key since 2019. They recorded the record, put it in a safe, locked it up because of COVID, and nobody even listened to the record for almost 2 years. Then they went in to put the finishing touches on it, mix and master it. They were like, yep, this is great. Okay. But that's how long Iron Maiden has been working on this album. So it's not like Senjutsu is a COVID baby. It's not an album that came out of boredom during the lockdown, that this is a record they had done in 2019, and they've been sitting and waiting on it for that long. The new single, Writing on the Wall, is out. The special effects video for the Writing on the Wall is also out, but Senjutsu comes out on September 3rd. So we're getting really close. And there are a bunch of different versions of this, including the big giant deluxe box set that comes with all kinds of stuff, including origami. And you can actually make Eddie's samurai helmet out of origami that comes in the giant deluxe edition of the album. Speaking of AC/DC, The Lives of Brian Johnson's autobiography is coming out on October 26th as well. So you want to be on the lookout for that. His life story, it's from when he was a kid up through the making and the release of the Black Album. So it's not going to have any of the new stuff about his hearing loss and leaving the band and all of that, but it is going to be the story of how he came to be the Brian Johnson we all know in AC/DC, which is a pretty fascinating story. Shinedown released the trailer for Attention, Attention, the feature film that is based on the songs of the album that came out in 2018. It comes out on September 3rd. It's available on video on demand, but you can check out the official trailer. It came out yesterday. Daughtry's new album, Dearly Beloved, is on the way out on September 17th. Tom Morello has his new solo album, The Atlas Underground Fire, coming out on October 15th. The first single, speaking of AC/DC, is a cover of Highway to Hell that features Eddie Vedder and Bruce Springsteen. And Tom Morello, one of the many rock stars that came out talking about the influence of Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones that we're going to talk about in a second. Jerry Cantrell, I don't want to overlook him. Jerry Cantrell announced a tour next year in support of his upcoming solo album called Brighton that is going to be out at the end of October. Jerry Cantrell is going to stop in Boston at Big Night Live on April 6th, and the tickets go on sale this Friday. The details are on the concert page or on the events page at mistresscarrie.com. There's new Tesla coming out this week called Cold Blue Steel, And Frank Hannon is recovering, as is Ricky Madlock from Lynyrd Skynyrd, who is recovering from COVID. Corey Taylor over the weekend announced that he tested positive for COVID, said it's the sickest he has ever been, and said he was so happy that he got vaccinated because he shuddered to think how sick he would have gotten if he had not been vaccinated. And the big news this week, the FDA has approved and put through the Pfizer vaccine through all of the protocols that every other vaccine that you have ever gotten has gone through. So the Pfizer vaccine is no longer considered experimental. And so I know a lot of people were having nervous feelings about an experimental vaccine, and that is no longer the case right now for the Pfizer vaccine. They're expecting the Moderna vaccine to be certified by the FDA, very shortly, but I wanted to make sure that I passed that along, that if you are not vaccinated yet, there have been so many instances of musicians that have tested positive that were extremely glad they got vaccinated. I talked to Alice Cooper, who was out for a month with COVID. And there have just been so many artists that have gotten COVID and been so happy that they had been vaccinated because some people get it. They're not vaccinated and it's not that big of a deal. Some people, Corey Taylor got really sick even though he was vaccinated. And the idea is his immune system had been jump-started to prepare, which is what vaccines do. And when you see the video messages from Corey Taylor, he's really hoarse and you could hear it in his voice that there's some respiratory illness there, which not only is it stressful just because it's a global pandemic, but Wolfgang Van Halen from Mammoth WVH said it. He's like, look, I'm not necessarily afraid of dying, but I'm a singer. I do not want a respiratory illness. There are people that have a cough for months, which could make it incredibly difficult to be a singer. And Corey Taylor is a guy that he was out on a CMFT solo tour, but he has got Slipknot dates scheduled through next year. And then he's supposed to possibly work on a Stone Sour record. And I don't know if all the vocal tracks are done for the upcoming Slipknot album either, but he's a busy guy. Having his voice disrupted is not something that I'm sure he was all that enthused about. So feel good, feel better, Corey. We know Jonathan Davis is also on the mend, and Lee Kakati is supposed to be able to return to Pop Evil by the weekend because all three of them got COVID. So, okay, we got to talk about Charlie Watts. So in case you didn't hear this morning, Charlie Watts, the drummer from the Rolling Stones for 60 years, passed away in London earlier today in a hospital. According to the statement, he was surrounded by his family. He had earlier this year announced that he was not going to tour with the Stones. And even though he's 80 years old, he was so fit. He played his last show. The Rolling Stone magazine posted the YouTube video today of what is believed to be Charlie Watts' last live performance with the Rolling Stones. And it was on August 30th of 2019. He was 78 years old playing drums for the Rolling Stones in Miami. And the footage is up there. And you look at him and he's still playing drums for the Rolling Stones at 78 years old. Now, other than what he called his midlife crisis in the 80s when he started doing drugs and drinking for a bit and then quit because he said it just wasn't him. He had lived a pretty healthy lifestyle, was married to his wife, Shirley, for 56 years. And I am not prepared for the inevitability of all of our rock heroes to disappear. The fact that we have had the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, I mean, bands like Foghat and 38 Special and like all of these amazing Iron Maiden, the fact that we have these artists at this age. I mean, David Coverdale is turning 70 next year, which is why he wants this to be Whitesnake's final tour because he wants the performances to still be good. We take for granted the fact that they're always going to be there. And I am not prepared for the inevitability of the greats of rock and roll to be gone. I am not prepared for Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr to not be with us anymore. They are all outliving the average, right? I mean, Keith Richards staggers the imagination. But if the average American man lifespan is 76, 78 years old, these guys who, now you can attribute it to having money, so having access to, good food and, personal training and all of that. But the years on the road also take away from that. It's disruptive to their sleep. Obviously, the partying doesn't help. But losing Charlie Watts at 80 years old, any of us would be happy to have a relative live and be that active and healthy until they were 80. But to be married to someone for 56 years, you're not going to be prepared to lose someone even after 56 years. Even at 80 years old, the idea that the drummer of the Rolling Stones passed away today seems unfathomable to me. And I'm scared about what's going to happen in the next few years because so many of the artists that we love, that inspired generations of rock bands that we hold dear, that we are going to lose them. I am not prepared for all of this. And that's why when you hear people like Brad Whitford say they don't know how much more Aerosmith is going to be able to tour because age is becoming a factor. It isn't the years, it's the miles, I'm finding out, says Travis. Yeah, I mean, it's years and miles. I think it's also genetics too. To lose somebody like Dave from Drowning Pool at such a young age of a congenital heart defect in the bunk while on the Ozfest in his 30s. I mean, it's like, people aren't going to last forever. But it's like, how many jokes have we made that the Rolling Stones are just always going to be? They released the official statement late this afternoon. Mick Jagger posted a picture of Charlie Watts, older Charlie Watts, in a full laugh behind a drum set with no comment or caption to the photo. And then Keith Richards posted, the little signs that businesses hang in the windows that says closed, and then there's a little clock that says when they'll be back. Keith Richards put a picture of Charlie Watts' drum kit up with a closed sign hanging off of one of the cymbal stands. And that is all we have heard from the actual band members, other than the official statement that came out with the official announcement and confirmation that Charlie Watts had passed. But one of the things that you can go and see, and I read a lot of them on the air today, is the artists paying tribute to Charlie Watts. And one of the things that people said over and over again was how meticulous he was in his timekeeping of the band, the groove that he set. Joan Jett said something where he only played what was necessary, no more, no less. And there are a lot of flashy drummers, right? I love Tommy Lee. I love drummers like that. I love the dueling drum solo that the guys in Godsmack do. Charlie Watts wasn't that kind of a drummer. He was a jazz guy. He had a small drum kit, but he was a human metronome, and he played the perfect drum beat at the perfect time. I mean, think about the beginning of Sympathy for the Devil or Honky Tonk Woman or Brown Sugar, like these grooves. And there were a couple things that Charlie Watts said. There were some quotes and some interviews that came out that I read today because there was just so much news and information coming out about Charlie Watts. Mick Jagger said, Keith Richards said in an interview back in 2010, he said, Charlie Watts is the musical bed that I sleep in, I believe he said, or lay in. Basically saying that like Charlie Watts is the foundation of what's there. Charlie Watts said, Mick is the show, but he wouldn't be able to dance if the beat was wrong, if the music was bad. And that's exactly right. That while Mick Jagger and Keith Richards may be the face of the Rolling Stones, they could not have gone and done all of the things without that rock solid foundation of Charlie Watts. And, if you had asked me, favorite bands of all time, I love the Rolling Stones. I appreciate the Rolling Stones. There are so many great songs. I've seen the Rolling Stones live multiple times. But there are so many other bands that I think for me, like the Beatles, like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, that I would say would come above my love of the Stones. But there is so much respect there because the Stones came out so early and inspired so many of those big 70s bands that we all love. And Charlie Watts was that guy. People like Elton John, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, commenting not only on what a fantastic drummer he was, but what a gentleman he was, what fantastic company he was, how stylish he was and how he was always sharply dressed, what a devoted family man he was with his wife and daughters, and what a great grandfather he was. There were a couple things that I learned about Charlie Watts today that I wanted to share with you really quick. Some quirky things. When you're that rich, you're eccentric, obviously. One of the things was that he collected cars, but he didn't have a license, which I thought was hilarious. So he had these amazing cars and he would go and spend time with them and sit in them in the garage, but that he didn't drive them. Another thing that came out was that because he was a graphic designer before he took over being the drummer in the Rolling Stones, he was very artistic, and that he used to sketch the hotel rooms that he stayed in while he was out on the road. And according to the stuff I read today, he saved those sketches and drawings, which I thought would make a fantastic and fascinating illustration book to be able to see kind of what touring looked like for Charlie Watts in the hotel rooms that he stayed in. I just thought I'd never heard of anything like that before. And to me, it was fascinating that throughout all of the touring that the Rolling Stones did over decades, if it's true, which I don't know if it is, but it's something I read, that I just thought that was really cool. Quirky, strange, but really cool. And I would love to see those drawings someday if the family ever decided to share them. And then there was the famous story that was alluded to in an Esquire magazine interview. There's a lot of memes that have been circulating around it, but the story about how Mick Jagger, late one night, drunk, called Charlie Watts on the phone in his hotel room and asked where his drummer was. And according to rock and roll legend, again, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, Charlie Watts got up, shaved, put on a suit, walked to Mick Jagger's hotel room, and told Mick Jagger, "I'm not your fucking drummer, you're my fucking singer," and punched Mick Jagger in the mouth. And then turned around and walked away and passed Keith Richards in the hallway. And when Keith asked what he was doing, he said that he punched Mick Jagger and then he went back to bed. But that he got up and got dressed in a suit to go and punch Mick Jagger in the mouth. I hope this story's true, not because I hope Mick Jagger got punched in the mouth, but because it's just the most hilarious story I've ever heard, that Charlie Watts wouldn't just get up in his pajamas in a fit of rage and go punch somebody, that he got up and prepared his appearance in order to do it. Because it's almost more insulting to Mick Jagger that he was that calm, cool, and collected and concerned about his appearance. And not only am I going to come and punch you, but I'm going to look good when I do it. I don't know if this story is good or true or real, but God, I hope it is, because that has got to go down as one of the greatest rock and roll stories in history. Hilarious. So those were just some of the amazing things that I read about Charlie Watts today. And I listened to a lot of Rolling Stones music, played a lot of Rolling Stones music today on the show. And there are just so many rock stars reacting, heavy metal artists, hip hop artists. It crossed all genres. The Rolling Stones are one of those artists that literally inspired everyone. And the loss is being felt by everyone in music tonight. So I also wanted to bring this to your attention really quick. So Megadeth released Unplugged in Boston. It is an unplugged show that was recorded in Boston in 2001. The show was on May 9th at Bill's Bar in 2001. And if you go and listen to this album, Symphony of Destruction is the last song in the performance. And now it's an unplugged Megadeth performance. But I want you guys, I put it up as a blog post. I embedded the Spotify player for this album in my blog at mistresscarrie.com. If you go and listen to Symphony of Destruction, you will hear me introduce the band. It's 20 years old, a little over 20 years old. It was May 9th of 2001. So the audio is 20 years old or a little over. I am shocked at how high my voice is. It sounds like I sucked on a helium balloon. And I am shocked. There's a shout out to WAAF in there. You can hear me. I was on the air talking to the sold out crowd of people at Bill's Bar. I remember giving away tickets to this thing. It was Megadeth at Bill's Bar, which is like, for anybody that is here in the War Room that doesn't know what Bill's Bar is, it is along Lansdowne Street behind the Green Monster in Boston. It is a small rock club. It holds maybe 250, maybe 300 people. It's near the House of Blues, which is a bigger music venue. But to see Megadeth play in a place like Bill's Bar is not a common thing, especially in 2001. And I never say it's Mistress Carrie because it was an AAF show, so I just didn't introduce myself. But it's me. And people started messaging me going, did you hear yourself on the Megadeth Live Unplugged in Boston album? And I went and listened to it today and I was like, holy shit, that is me. So, no, I wasn't stoned, Aaron. Brianna says, wow, that's impressive that you got to announce Megadeth on stage when you were 7 years old. Yeah, you guys got to listen to it. First of all, it's a fantastic unplugged performance from Megadeth, who is not a band that's necessarily known for being an acoustic band. But I can't believe they just released this. So I can't believe that this finally got officially released from the band and that they kept my intro in there. So I wanted to say cheers to the guys from Megadeth for keeping my intro in there on Symphony of Destruction and for paying homage to your Boston fans. I thought it was really cool. So cheers to Megadeth. And if you haven't checked it out, you can get a physical copy or you can go and stream it anywhere. But I embedded the player for the album off of Spotify in my blog at mistresscarrie.com, so you can check it out. So there you go. Unofficial member of Megadeth, says Eric. I don't think so. She may have a drink. I wasn't drinking that night. I have told you guys many times that when I'm working, right, other than the War Room, because the name of the show is fucking Cocktails in the War Room, so I have a cocktail because it's in the name of the show. But when I'm working, I don't drink because if you're live on the air, the FCC stuff and whatever, but I was always just really concerned about screwing up my job. Here is a perfect example about why I don't make a habit of drinking when I'm working, because this is audio that's 20 years old. Had I been shit-faced that night, the whole world would be hearing it right now. So thankfully, I wasn't drunk. Let's see. F-bomb drink, says Melissa. Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys check this out and listen to it. And it's hilarious. Just wait till you hear how high my voice is. 20 years of broadcasting and concerts and all of the shows that I've done, just all the talking that I do because of my job, have definitely deepened my vocal cords in a major way. I can't believe my voice is so high. I want to remind you guys about the Boston Wounded Vet Run, which is coming up on September 19th. I'm going to be there at the finish with a big booth set up. The ride leaves Boston Harley and heads to Anthony's of Malden. There are going to be several recipients this year, wounded veterans, that will be in attendance. So definitely join me. All the details on the Boston Wounded Vet Run are up on the events calendar. And also wanted to remind you guys, Kings of Leon are going to be at the Xfinity Center this Saturday night. And I want to go so bad, and I can't because I'm having dinner with Mike Shue and our old boss from AAF. The last 3 amigos that were on the air the final night of WAF right before we signed off are getting together to have a dinner on Saturday night, which I could not be more excited about. So I can't go and see Kings of Leon, which I'm super bummed about because I love them so much. So if you are looking for something to do on Saturday night, I just want to remind you that Kings of Leon was playing. Mail call this week. There wasn't anything in the mail. Maybe that's why Wednesday was kissing your ass earlier, but there was nothing in the mail this week. So don't worry about that. Want to remind you guys that, the Maiden Lockdown 2020 baby onesies are on sale in the online store, and that once they're gone because we're running out of time for babies that are being born to have actually been made in lockdown in 2020. So if you don't have them yet, they come in sizes newborn through 24 months, and you can get them in the official online store at mistresscarrie.com. Only a couple birthdays today, although I got to tell you, the last few days has been impressive with the number of rock and roll birthdays. And when you go back and look at this time, like when people born now would have been made, it's around the holidays. And there's a lot of artists, creatives, musicians that were made around the holidays in whatever year they were born. Today was River Phoenix's birthday. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers put up an amazing tribute to him today. And John Bush from Armored Saint and obviously from Anthrax was born on this date. Want to make sure I'm saying hello to everybody with a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. You can get them on Patreon. This month, you get 20% off the entire store at mistresscarrie.com. You get an exclusive coupon code. You get to submit podcast interview questions, exclusive live stream every month, which we got to set the date for. Shit, we're almost at the end of the month, guys. Holy shit. I think we're going to have to get together this weekend for anybody with a Backstage Pass because I didn't even realize it was the end of the month. My brain, with an unexpected visit from the husband over the weekend, is a little bit fried. You also get early notification on events and early access to tickets, which they did with the 150th episode of Cocktails in the War Room. And you also get exclusive concert ticket giveaways. And for anybody that's here with a Backstage Pass, guys, I got more tickets coming up tomorrow. So make sure you're paying attention to your Backstage Pass account because I'm going to have more tickets to hook you guys up with coming up tomorrow. Just a reminder of all the places you can find me. All my social media accounts, the YouTube channel, which is where all the Cocktails in the War Room episodes go after we get done on Facebook. Patreon, which is where you can find me to get a Backstage Pass. Facebook, which has rolled out the new podcast platform. So you should be able to listen and you should be getting notified on my Facebook page if you follow the Mistress Carrie official Facebook page. The podcast episodes should be showing up for you and you should be able to listen to them right on Facebook, which is really cool that Facebook rolled out. And then on Twitter at Mistress Carrie as well. Penny says, I need a sweatshirt for fall. I believe we are going to have sweatshirts at the 150th episode of Cocktails in the War Room. I'm just working on who's going to be selling the merch while I'm drinking signature cocktails with Mike Shue. So that's going to happen. What's going on, John? Nice to meet you too. Thank you for hanging out with us. Wait, is it Keith's real birthday? It's not Keith's unbirthday? Is it his real birthday today? Love my hoodie. I got it in the mail like 4 days after I ordered it. Jen, we process orders. MCHQ is on the ball. Yeah, so, and I'm hoping that we're going to have hoodies available at the 150th thing at the boat. So you'll be able to get them right there. Happy birthday and unbirthday, Keith. Wait, today's really Keith's birthday? For real? Not unbirthday Keith, but real birthday Keith? Happy birthday, Keith. Or is it one Keith is having a birthday and the other Keith is having his unbirthday? I can't keep track of the Keiths. MCHQ, Mike is laughing. That's what we call it, Mike. We named the studio that a long time ago. Friday will be Keith B's birthday. Okay, other Keith, says Keith. Okay, good. I'm getting the Keiths confused. I love my hoodie. Horns up mug too, Marcy says. That is fantastic. Thank you. So, that's pretty much it, guys. I made it through the whole episode without crying, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's been still my unbirthday, Keith says. Okay, good, Keith. I cried this morning, so I guess I got the tears out when I said bye to my husband at the airport. But it was good to be able to spend a couple days with him, and because it was pouring out and whatever, there wasn't really much that we could do. So it was a nice surprise to kind of have a rainy Sunday at home, watching movies and eating popcorn with my husband, which is not something we ever get to do. So it was very cool. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you to Wednesday for being so on the ball tonight. I want to make sure you guys remember episode 64 features Carl Bell from Fuel. That episode goes live, if I can get it finished on time, at midnight tonight, because it's still not fucking done, but I'm going to get it done. And then another sit rep comes out tomorrow as well. So lots going on, guys. We're very, very busy. Thank you guys for hanging out with me every week here in the War Room. Thank you for supporting the podcast, for supporting the radio show and listening, and just for being the amazing family that you guys all are. So I appreciate it. Good night, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me. Episode 146 of Cocktails in the War Room is in the books. I'll see you guys next week.